What is going on, cousins? My name is Terrence. For those of you that do not know who I am, and I would like to welcome you to Don't Talk, Just Listen, the hottest, the freshest, the newest, the bestest pro wrestling WWE podcast slash gaming channel on the internet today. Now, it's been a minute since I've done any type of podcast or ordeal, any type of episode. I've mainly tried to focus on WWE 2K Universe mode, but today I wanted to get into a controversial subject matter, if you will. And that's something that Don't Talk, Just Listen is kind of all about. It's not just a phrase. It's not just a podcast. Don't Talk, Just Listen it's a movement. It's a way of life. A lot of people like to just talk, especially in the wrestling community. It's overrun with boys and girls that believe that everything that they say and do is the end all be all. Everything that they say is the truth, and that's just not true. And it's more than just the wrestling community. It's life in general. It's the world in general. People talk too much, and this podcast is all about stop talking. Don't talk. Just listen. Take the time to listen to a point of view maybe that you didn't agree with at first, but maybe after you listen to it, you can understand and you can maybe agree. You can see where your judgment and your thinking kind of went out of bounds, kind of went the wrong way. But like I said, this is about pretty controversial topic that came out a few weeks ago, and part of it has been for years now, and that is a few weeks ago. It was reported that Vince McMahon doesn't believe that there's any stars in the WWE locker room. And also it's been reported that we might never ever see John Cena again. Or not the John Cena, but someone of the caliber of John Cena. And today that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about why Vince McMahon doesn't believe that there are any stars in the WWE locker room. And I wanted to dissect how we got to this point and the reason why he believes there are no stars in WWE, and why we might never see another John Cena ever again. Now, before I start, I just want to say that I wholeheartedly believe that we have a ton of stars in that locker room, and the next John Cena could very well be right in front of our faces. Now, I want to start off by saying I was born December 1995. I was born at the very beginning of the most important, the most crucial era of professional wrestling, but most importantly, the most important time in the history of the WWE or WWF at the time, because it was the time in which Vince McMahon and the WWE as we know it would not exist today if they didn't come out on top. And you got to think about what the Attitude Era was. The Attitude Era started off as a kind of like a monopoly, if you will. The professional wrestling industry is just like any other sports league in the world. NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, MLS. You need competition. And if you look at professional wrestling at this point in time, leading into the early 90s, into the mid 90s, there were territories all across the country. And Vince McMahon was predominantly in the northeast of the United States, while there was Mid-South wrestling and all of these NWA, AWA, all that stuff. There was one thing that Vince McMahon could not control, and that was the fact that there were other companies, other territories that served as direct rivals to him. And when I say direct rivals, I don't mean maybe they weren't on the same level in terms of television production, or they weren't on the same level as just being broadcast across the entire country. But these territories had one thing that Vince McMahon did not have. That was loyal fan bases that were local. You look at Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler was literally the king in the South, in the Midwest. He was the king. He was the guy. There were fans of professional wrestling that their idol was Jerry the King Lawler. And you don't have to go to WWF, WWE to see Jerry the King Lawler perform, because he was right there in your own backyard. So why do I need to go see my idol? Why do I need to go to WWE when all I care about is Jerry the King? And I'm from Tennessee myself. I want to be a professional wrestler. And what better way than to think and to believe that it's a possibility for you to do it than to see somebody from your own backyard being the one of the best in the world, and in your eyes and your mind, the best at the time. You had people like Jerry. You had people like the Von Erichs. You had people like Ric Flair. People that weren't a part of the WWE, and for the most part, they were bigger in some aspects than the WWE. So what does Vince McMahon do? Vince McMahon understands that my pockets, my wallet, my bank account, it's deeper than these localized territories. I have more money than this company does. So instead of trying to compete with them to some degree, or letting them compete with me and taking and having their own fans, why not just buy my competition? Why not just buy all of these territories that oppose me? Just think about that. You're Vince McMahon and you see somebody like Jerry the King Lawler. You see him tearing it up, and he's not a part of your company. And you see how much he brings to the table, how many people, how many fans he brings to the table. I want that. So I'm not only gonna take Jerry Lawler, I'm gonna take the place that he's built and I'm gonna get rid of it. But because he brought so many fans to the table, so many loyal, dedicated fans of his. Once I get him, they will have no choice but to come to my show. They will have no choice but to come to my company because that's their guy. They can't see their guy anywhere else. For so long, they were able to see their guy without watching the WWF. But now, they have no choice but to watch the WWF if they want to see their guy, if they want to see their idol. And that's what Vince McMahon did. Slowly, he started to, I'm going to buy you. I'm gonna buy your company, get rid of it, take your star, whoever I want. I'm gonna buy your company, your company, your company. To at some point, one day, there was no more competition. And the only other competition that there might have been was the NWA, but that was slowly but surely fading because Vince had all the stars. Vince was the guy. It's just like in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant was up 3-1 to the Golden State Warriors. He was one game away from beating them. He was one game away from kind of ruining what is now known as the dynasty, if you will, of the Golden State Warriors. He was one game away, but he blew it. Now, WWE will be considered, we can call them the Golden State Warriors of the professional wrestling industry at this time. And Kevin Durant, instead of choosing to compete against the dynasty, against the monopoly, he joined the monopoly. And that's what Vince did. All the guys, the top talents, he forced them to come to the WWF because he bought their territories. So now if there was anybody that you want to see, you had to watch the WWF. But just like Monopoly in any other realm, the fans get sick and tired of it. Just like ratings, television ratings and viewership in the NBA, it went down because everybody understands the Golden State Warriors are the best team in the NBA. And no matter how much we root for our team, no matter where they make it in the playoffs, we understand that if they go against the Golden State Warriors, it's a wrap. No matter who goes against the Golden State Warriors, it's a wrap. The Golden State Warriors will go to the finals. They will win the championship. So this whole season is a loss. It's pointless. And that's what Vince McMahon did. Vince McMahon created the Golden State Warriors of the professional wrestling industry. But there's two things. There's several things that you need in the professional wrestling business. But in my opinion, there's two things that stand out over everything else if you're looking to start a business, if you're looking to start your own wrestling promotion. There's fans and money. And a little country man named Ted Turner had endless amounts of money. And Vince McMahon was losing endless amounts of fans. Because after a while, as a monopoly, you don't have anything to compete against. So you're only competing against yourself. So you have to be better than you were the day before. Otherwise, you just start spinning your wheels. And Ted Turner was there to scoop up those fans. Ted Turner was there to grab the people that were tired of the monopoly. Ted Turner told Vince McMahon he was in the wrestling business. Ted Turner had endless amounts of money. So Ted Turner could go buy those stars. The same stars that Vince McMahon was going to go buy their territory so he could grab those stars. Ted Turner was buying those superstars from the WWF and bringing them over to his territory. So Ted Turner was able to not only have endless amounts of money to just throw at WCW, to put into creating this promotion, creating this worldwide brand, but he was grabbing fans who were loyal, dedicated followers of certain superstars. On top of already having his own superstars like Ric Flair, like Sting, like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to an extent, the Four Horsemen. He had these guys, and then he went and bought Hulk Hogan. He went and got Steve Nash and Scott Hall. Or Kevin Nash, excuse me. I don't know why I said Steve Nash. Steve Nash, the basketball player. Because I had basketball on my mind, but you understood what I was talking about. So, Ted Turner hired Eric Bischoff. And Eric Bischoff had the goal in mind that he wanted to destroy Vince McMahon. There's nothing that fuels you more in competition than having a rival, having somebody to look at as the end all be all. Kobe Bryant had Michael Jordan in his head. That's the guy he needs to beat. That's the guy that fuels him. Michael Jordan has 6 rings. I need to get 6 rings. Michael Jordan does this. I need to do that. Eric Bischoff wanted to defeat Vince McMahon. So Eric Bischoff was coming up with these great creative ideas, and the NWO was formed. Something edgy, something cool, something unique, something we never seen before. And that was grabbing more and more fans away from the WWE, who, because they were a monopoly for so long, were stagnant in their ways, stagnant in their creative, stagnant in their presentation. So as a wrestling fan, why would I want to look at something stagnant, something that I've seen over and over and over again, something that I've grown out of, when over here there's this new company, brand new company, has that new car smell, and they're putting on good matches, good creative, something unique, something that I've never seen before, something edgy, which at the time, in the 90s, the mid-90s, edgy was the style. So, Vince McMahon seeing the Attitude Era, the Monday Night War between WCW and Monday Night Raw, this wasn't some friendly competition. No, this was, if you lose this competition, if you lose this war, you will lose everything. Your company will be finished. Your superstars will be out of jobs. You're nothing. The WWF will be nothing. So Vince McMahon sees this, and he sees the way that he was doing things wasn't working anymore. He sees that the way I've produced the show, the way I've booked, the way I've written the shows, my creative style is stagnant. My creative style is in the past now. My creative style isn't what it should be to fit in with the times, to keep the fans on my side. So what does Vince McMahon do? What does he do? Vince McMahon gives damn near full control to his roster of the Attitude Era. You had people like Stone Cold, people like The Rock, Nation of Domination, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the entire D-Generation X. You had Mark Henry. You had The Undertaker. You had Mankind. Vince McMahon gave control to his roster. He gave them the freedom to get themselves over the way that they wanted to get over. And you can go back to the WWE Network. You can go look at the WCW Monday Night War documentaries. You can look at the D-Generation X episode, and you can see how they were coming up with their own ideas, and they were getting riskier and riskier, and Vince was getting nervous and skeptical about it because they were riskier and edgier. But it was working, so he allowed it. He saw something that was working. He saw something that was benefiting not only them, not only Vince McMahon, but the entire company. So he allowed it. You see people like Stone Cold Steve Austin. The character Stone Cold Steve Austin is pretty much Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's who he is. And the best characters are extensions of the person. Stone Cold Steve Austin did what he did. He wasn't being told what to do 9 times out of 10. It was stuff that he wanted to do. It was how he was doing it. He was talking the way he wanted to talk. He was wrestling the way he wanted to wrestle. He was doing everything that Stone Cold Steve Austin believed that Stone Cold Steve Austin should be doing. The Rock, the same way. Vince McMahon gave control to the superstars over their own careers, essentially. Because the way he had been doing it was almost destroying careers at that point. It was floundering. They were drowning careers. And him allowing superstars to take their creative into their own hands, it allowed for superstars to be formed. It allowed for mainstream stars. It allowed for crossover superstars. Superstars that were bigger than life. Superstars that were bigger than the WWF and the WCW. Just think about that. You had people like Mark Henry, who was giving the freedom to do sexual chocolate, to do things that allowed his real personality to come out on TV. And then you had people like Mankind, who never would have been given the light of day. He wasn't given the light of day in WCW, other than Cactus Jack a little bit. But even in the WWF, he really wasn't considered by Vince McMahon to be somebody that would have been a star. But remember when I said there's 2 things that you need. There's fans and money. Fans and money. Because you had ECW, they had the fans that could have kept them in business. They just didn't have the money to keep them in business. They had the loyal fan base, the passionate fan base. They had the fans. They just didn't have the money to compete. Cactus Jack Dude Love, Mankind, Mick Foley, he had the fans. And when you have the fans backing you at that time, you got to roll with it. So you had somebody like Mankind who people wanted to see succeed. They wanted him to be something more. They wanted him to be something that we never saw before, and Vince McMahon accomplished that. He gave him the championship. He put the company on his back, and it worked. WCW thought that they were going to be smart and spoil that WWF taping where Mankind won the title, but no, everybody turned off of WCW because they wanted to see Mankind win. Something unexpected, something that we never seen before, something that you couldn't have fathomed only in your dreams, something that people wanted to see, and they were going to see it. It was real. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It wasn't just a fantasy. It was something that they were seeing. Vince McMahon gave his roster the freedom to get themselves over. He gave them the freedom to become stars. He didn't suffocate them with his boring, stagnant creative. His boring, stagnant promos, his writing. Whatever they thought they needed to do for their own careers, for their own characters, he allowed them to do so, and he made it. He didn't make them, they made themselves stars. Dozens and dozens and dozens of stars on their own free will. And as Vince McMahon gave more and more creative free will to his roster, the tide turned. The fans shifted from WCW back to the WWF. Because WWF was now this unbelievable episode. Every single week you had to turn in because everything was must watch. You could not miss a single episode. While WCW was the same stagnant, boring creative that WWF had been for so long. WCW, you knew every single week you were going to get NWO. Who's going to be the next star to join NWO? Who's going to be the 1,500th member to join NWO? Who's going to be the next guy to join NWO? Who's going to be the next champion to fall to NWO? Who's going to be the next guy that Eric Bischoff is going to try to make NWO for life? NWO, NWO, NWO. So while WCW was all about NWO, in the background, WCW had this thing called the Cruiserweight division. You have Hall of Famer, legendary superstars. People like Chris Jericho. People like Dean Malenko. People like Rey Mysterio. People like Eddie Guerrero. These are Hall of Fame superstars. These are guys that are idols to people nowadays. Idols. They were putting on the best matches in WCW. But they were buried every single week because the NWO had to be the focal point. People tuned in during the heyday of WCW. People tuned in not because of WCW's NWO addiction. They would tune in sometimes just for the cruiserweights. They would tune in to see Chris Jericho. They would tune in to see Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. They would tune in to see these guys put on phenomenal matches because they were the guys on the roster that was putting on phenomenal matches. And while WCW was pushing them further and further down the card and making it more and more about NWO and all these old guys, we don't want to see Hulk Hogan for the 50th time in one episode. On WWF, we were getting the Generation X. We were getting Stone Cold. We were getting The Rock. We were getting Mankind, The Undertaker. We were getting Kane. We were getting China. We were getting Sable, powerbombing dudes. We were getting all this stuff that was a breath of fresh air, while on WCW, we were getting nothing but the same old, same old. And so just like the fans were going from WWF to WCW because the product was stagnant, now fans were going from WCW back to the WWF because their product was stagnant, but it was even worse than what WWF was at the time. So WCW, it eventually goes out of business because it was that bad. You had people like Ric Flair. You had people like Sting. You had people like one of my favorites of all time, Booker T. This April, he's going to be a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer. You had those guys. You had people like Goldberg, who even after a while, Goldberg was stagnant to people. You had these guys who were a part of a sinking ship. They deserved a lot more, a lot better than what they were getting. WCW, it ends up failing, going out of business. And just like years and years and years beforehand, Vince McMahon buys his competition. He even said on the episode of WWF Monday Night Raw, I bought my competition, WCW. He buys his competition. He buys the contracts and stuff of some of those superstars. And that was the curse of the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era will forever be known, in my opinion, as the best era in professional wrestling history because it was the most crucial. It was the most important. It gave us the best product we've ever seen before from a story perspective. That was the gift. But the curse was that Vince McMahon bought his competition once again. But this time, there was nobody else to come and compete. Vince McMahon bought WCW. He bought his competition. He bought the biggest competitor he's ever had. He bought the company that at one point had him dead to rights. He bought him. And in my opinion, Vince McMahon buying WCW was the equivalent of winning a championship while you were sitting on the bench. It's easy to win a championship with the Golden State Warriors. It's even easier if you don't do a damn thing. There's a lot of guys that they sign contracts with title contenders, but they don't do a damn thing. That's almost what it's like for Vince McMahon, in my opinion. He bought his competition. And he wasn't even the best part. of the Attitude Era. He was in arguably the best, well, without a doubt, he was in the best feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But this McMahon buying his competition, his biggest competition, did nothing but inflate his ego and make him believe that he did a whole lot more than he truly did. And with Vince McMahon buying WCW, in my opinion, it gave him the idea that, wow, what I did was phenomenal. I don't have anybody to compete against anymore, so what's the point in giving superstars creative freedom? Because I don't have anything to compete against. So I can go back to my old ways. I can go back to controlling every single aspect of the creative team, from writing to promos to storyboards, all that. I don't have anybody to compete against anymore. So I can go back to it being a one-man show. It being my word above all. And that was the curse of the Attitude Era. There was no company left to compete with Vince McMahon and the WWE. There was no one left. So Vince McMahon was able to go back in his old ways, to go back to the Vince McMahon that had the WWF in such a low point. And then at one point, the Ruthless Aggression Era started. And a little man named John Cena, well, not a little man, he was smaller than he is now, so I guess he was a little man. But John Cena comes along, and John Cena is arguably, and you can make, I can make this argument, because I am going to make the argument, but you can agree with me when I say this. Vince McMahon, or excuse me, John Cena was the last superstar that Vince McMahon treated like an Attitude Era superstar. In terms of Vince McMahon threw John Cena in the deep end and let him swim. He threw John Cena in the deep end and told him, swim. That's the same thing he did with D-Generation X, Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind. Same thing he did. Which was the same thing he did because he realized the product was stagnant. He realized that he was losing. He realized he had no choice. He told John Cena, here, you got it. I'm putting all my chips on you. Now, you can also argue that John Cena is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. He's a generational superstar. He was a Attitude Era superstar in terms of mentality, in terms of ability, in terms of promo, in terms of all that, except he just wasn't in the Attitude Era. Nobody can put together a promo like him unless you're The Rock, unless you're Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is true. But there's plenty of superstars who were never treated like John Cena. And that's no slight to John Cena. That's just fact. John Cena wasn't in the Attitude Era, but he was treated like an Attitude Era superstar. He was given every opportunity to succeed, and to his credit, he hit the checkbox every single time. John Cena is truly a living legend when it comes to just overall ability, being able to do everything. But just like before the Attitude Era, no competition was the worst for the WWF and the professional wrestling industry. Because WWF, now that WWF owned WCW, they own their competition. They are now a monopoly once again. Because when they were competing against the WCW, they were not the monopoly because they had to compete for something. They had to compete for fans. They had to compete for money. They had to compete for viewership. They had to compete for their livelihoods. And that's not what a monopoly is. A monopoly is not something that you have to compete. A monopoly is not something that has adversity. A monopoly is easygoing. A monopoly, they can go on vacation to Boca Raton. They can go on vacation to Cuba, to Dubai. They can go to New Zealand and all these beautiful countries, all these cruises. They can do that and come back and not lost a single dime. They can do all of that. That's not what the WWF was at the time. But after he bought his competition, he had nobody to compete with. He was able to go back to the old Vince McMahon, that did everything his way. It was his ideas. And that is why he started to lose fans again over time. And then this company called TNA, it was called Total Non-Stop Action. They came about. And I will be the first person to say I was a fan of TNA from the beginning. From the very start of the company to about maybe 2009, 2010, right around Hulk Hogan era, I was hardcore fan. I was an AJ Styles fan before he was ever in the WWE. I knew who AJ Styles was when he wore those little trunks. I knew AJ Styles when he was in WCW as a part of that tag team. I think they were called the Air Raiders, something like that, or something like that. You know, all my old school WCW fans and AJ Styles fans, y'all know what I'm talking about. He was a part of that tag team. They wore bottoms. They wore like red, they weren't tights. They were bottoms. And you know, they were pants. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. He had the bleach blonde hair with the spikes and crap. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I knew who AJ Styles was. I knew who R-Truth was when he was a part of 2 Live Crew and all that crap. I knew who Jerry Lynn was. Or Jerry Flynn. Whatever, y'all know what I'm talking about. I knew who Chris Sabin was. I knew who Abyss was. I knew the Alex Shelley. I knew Eric Young when he was bleached, blonde hair, little innocent looking kid. Team Canada. Bobby Roode had that long hair. Team Canada. Shane Douglas. I knew all these people, dog. I knew these people before they was ever anything. Because TNA gave us the same thing that WCW did. Which TNA was, it was a spinoff of WCW. That's what it was. But just like WCW, TNA was coming out with innovative stuff. The X Division, which is like Cruiserweight Division on steroids. The Ultimate X Match, or whatever that was called. I forgot what that was called. Samoa Joe. I remember Samoa Joe feuding with Kurt Angle. I remember that. I remember Chris Daniels and Elix Skipper. I remember these dudes. I remember Sting showing up and he was there several times. Like he had several stints. I remember DDP showing up after he was in WWF. I remember this. I remember AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. I remember them putting on classic matches as part of a classic 3-way feud. I remember this. TNA was doing something that WCW had did. They were innovating the business. They were giving us something that we'd never seen before. They were giving us interesting storylines. They were giving us interesting characters, people that we'd never seen before. But they were putting on great matches, so it was making us want to see them more and more. They were giving us something that WCW had did, and that was something other than the WWF to see. And remember when I said 2 things that you need? Fans and money? Guess what TNA was doing? They was getting fans, dog. I was one of them. I was one of those people that was tired of the WWE. I remember watching TNA more than I was watching WWE. I remember we were getting DirecTV. And I was like, I asked the guy that was installing the crap, I was like, will I be able to watch wrestling? And I wasn't talking about WWE. I was talking about TNA being on, what was it, Spike TV at the time. I remember TNA having shitty television. It looked like a old school ESPN with like the ticker was on the top, and it was a whole bar that went across the screen. I remember this. TNA gave us something that WWE wasn't giving us, and that was everything. Interesting stories, great matches, great athletes. It was giving us competition. They were never on the same level as WCW in terms of being able to really compete with the WWE. And then TNA started to bring in all the old school guys, just like WCW did. Nobody wants to see Hulk Hogan anymore. We love you, Ric Flair, but after your Evolution days, nobody wanted to see Ric Flair compete in matches. We want to see AJ Styles. We want to see Samoa Joe. We want to see Austin Aries. We want to see Elijah Burke, the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro. We want to see Abyss. We want to see Jay Lethal. You had Jay Lethal. He had a great story with Ric Flair, but still, we want to see Jay Lethal. So after a while, TNA was the company, not in terms of having more money, not in terms of having more viewers, not in terms of being the bigger company, but in being the company that fans wanted to see. I would still watch WWE because Booker T was there, John Cena was there, Randy Orton was there, Triple H was there, Undertaker was there, The Rock was there, CM Punk was there. I was still watching. Rey Mysterio was there. My favorite of all time, Eddie Guerrero. He was there. So I still had reasons to watch the WWE, but I was watching TNA religiously. I couldn't wait to watch AJ Styles. Couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to watch Samoa Joe. Couldn't wait. And over time, TNA went further and further and further downhill, which made WWE even more viable. And even with independent promotions like ROH, like PWG, even with big time companies like New Japan, they still weren't competing with WWE. And with less and less viable, threatening competition to compete, with the WWE, more and more, Vince McMahon was suffocating the creative. Vince McMahon was suffocating the product. Even with extraordinary talents like CM Punk, like Wade Barrett, who was never pushed to the degree that he deserved. Even with people like Alex Riley, who was never treated the way he should have, he was set for a massive push, and then that was thrown away. Lo and behold, you get people like Neville. You get people like Tyler Breeze. You get people like Roman Reigns, like Seth Rollins, like Dean Ambrose, like Rusev, like Damian Sandow. You get all of these mega stars. You have all of these mega stars, but at the end of the day, you still don't have a great product in terms of story development, in terms of storytelling. And that's because there's nobody telling Vince McMahon no. But more importantly, there's nobody to compete with Vince McMahon telling him this is how you do it. There's nobody threatening Vince McMahon with a better product. There's nobody threatening Vince McMahon to pull his fans. So we get people like Roman Reigns shoved down our throats. I will say this right here, right now. I don't care who believes me. I don't care who believes me. When the Shield first started, I knew who Seth Rollins was because I had that. I'm a wrestling fan. You don't understand this. I was born December 1995 at the start of the greatest time in this business's history. This wrestling is in my blood. I don't have anybody in my family that's a professional wrestler. I'm not a second generation superstar, third generation, none of that. But wrestling is in my blood. I knew who Seth Rollins was when he was Tyler Black. I was watching on YouTube top 10 moves of Tyler Black, top 10 moves of Pac. Top 10 moves of El Generico. Top 10 moves of Teddy Hart. Top 10 moves of Kevin Steen. Top 10 moves of what's his name? Super Dragon. I was on there. I was doing all of this. This is in my blood. I knew who Tyler Black was. So when the Shield was there, I knew who he was. I didn't see Seth Rollins being the guy that he is now because in my head, I knew who he was already. I knew he was a high-flying guy. I knew he was the guy that was a great technician, basically. Dean Ambrose was the guy that was the mouthpiece of the group. Dean Ambrose was the guy that did all the talking, and you knew Dean Ambrose, the day that they split up, he was going to be the guy. He was going to put on great promo battles. He was seen as the leader of the group because he did all the talking. But in the back was the silent guy. In the back was the guy with the long hair that didn't say anything, but he had it. I knew Roman Reigns had it. Nobody knows what it is, but when you see it, you know what it is. Roman Reigns had it. For me, I knew it. Roman Reigns had it. And I knew the moment that they split up, he was going to be the guy. I don't care if you believe me or not. I knew Roman Reigns was going to be the guy out of that group that was going to be treated as the guy. And lo and behold, he was treated as the guy, but the problem was Vince McMahon shoved him down our throats. I had no problem with Roman Reigns being treated as the guy because I could see it. I could see he was the guy in the group. Just don't shove him down our throats. Allow him to build his way up to being the guy. You wonder why people shitted all on Roman Reigns. That's because he was shoved down our throats. You see, wrestling fans, we don't want you to tell us who to go for. We're going to tell you who to go for. Wrestling fans are a sensitive community. They think everything is right when everything is wrong. They think everything is wrong when everything is right. They think they know it all. And when you don't push the guy that they want, they get butthurt. And when you push the guy that they do want, they start to think, why are you pushing him? No, they're just going to have him fail. They're going to do all this. They're going to do that. Wrestling fans are sensitive. Being objective is a lost art in being a wrestling fan. I will admit, I shitted all over Roman Reigns being pushed down our throats. But that's because I understood he was being pushed down our throats. But once you get out of your own heads, out of your own egos, and you see he's putting on great matches. Roman Reigns can wrestle. The whole "you can't wrestle" chant that Roman Reigns is stupid, because all of the people that chant "you can't wrestle" can't wrestle. So once you get out of your own ass and you realize Roman Reigns can wrestle, the only problem that you can have with them is that Vince McMahon is pushing them down our throats. But the problem is, Vince McMahon doesn't come on TV. So how else are people going to give him the business? How else are people going to let Vince McMahon know that what you're doing is something that we don't like? And they understand Roman Reigns is being pushed by Vince McMahon. They understand that Roman Reigns, to a degree, is an extension of Vince McMahon. So what are they going to do? They're going to poo-poo all over Roman Reigns. The guy that was the good guy was being booed like he was Darth Vader. He was being booed like he was the super villain of the decade. And it didn't take until he told people that he had leukemia. He didn't tell them, it didn't take until he told them that he had a life-threatening disease. A disease that thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people died from. It was until that point that people realized, oh, the guy that we've been shitting on this whole time, the guy that we haven't taken the time to appreciate as a talent, is actually really good at his job. And it didn't take for him to leave the company so he can work on his body, work on his health, and survive this disease. That people realize Roman Reigns is really valuable to this product. It didn't take for him to say that he had cancer for people to treat him as the superstar and the person that he is. He's fantastic at his job. But just like you have people like Roman Reigns who are pushed to the moon by Vince McMahon, you have people who are the exact opposite. You have people like Daniel Bryan. You have people like Becky Lynch. You have people like Kofi Kingston, who are results of perfect timing. They are results of the perfect storm. When you have a great talent, plus you have fans. They have fans. Plus, those fans are sick and tired of Vince's BS when it comes to creative. When you have a great talent who is backed by fans who are ready to revolt, that's when you get results. Vince McMahon was never, ever, 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 ever going to push Daniel Bryan to be WWE champion. Because Vince McMahon, throughout the course of time, has always liked one thing: big guys. Give me a giant. Give me a guy with bodybuilder physique. And if it's a female superstar, give me a woman with blonde hair. A beautiful, attractive woman with blonde hair. If it's not one thing in the men's division, it's another thing in the women's division. But history has shown us that Vince McMahon wants the big guy. He doesn't want the little guy. He wants the big guy. Daniel Bryan does not fit that mold. Daniel Bryan is a phenomenal wrestler. But Vince McMahon doesn't care about that if the perception, if the physical perception, the aesthetic isn't what he deems as championship worthy. Think about it. Jinder Mahal is now on the list of WWE champions. He's on that list of Hall of Fame champions. Jinder Mahal will never go into the WWE Hall of Fame. But he's on the same list as people like Bret Hart, as Bruno Sammartino, as Ric Flair. Well, not Ric Flair, but as people like Triple H, John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, CM Punk, Randy Orton, Batista. He's on the list. Edge. AJ Styles. He's on that list of Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. He's on that list. Jinder Mahal is just like the Cleveland Browns. Imagine the Cleveland Browns go from 0-16 one year to the very next year being 16-0 and winning the Super Bowl. That's what Vince McMahon did with Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal was a jobber on Monday Night Raw. The very next night, on Tuesday night on SmackDown, he was #1 contender for the WWE Championship. And then the week after on the pay-per-view, he was WWE Champion. Now the problem is, I, just like everybody else, I crapped all over it. I will admit it, I crapped all over it. Because I understood what was happening. They were going into the Indian market. We had this guy who's Canadian. He was born in Canada. Did you know that? Jinder Mahal was born in Canada. But he is of Indian descent. He has Indian blood in him. He's the only Indian guy on the roster. So how about we make him champion? Plus, behind the scenes, Jinder Mahal put in tons and tons of work to work on his body, to work on his mind, to prove to people and this man that he's really about improving himself. He's really about being a star. And I crapped all over it, but that night on Backlash, when he beat Randy Orton and he won that championship, he was on that turnbuckle and he raised that championship, I could see what Vince McMahon was seeing. He looked like a champion when he held that title. In that moment, I decided to scale back my dislike, to scale back my disdain, my hatred at the moment. To give this an opportunity. But then after a while, all that wears off. All that, let's give this an opportunity, it wears off. Because the creative was dog shit. It's another thing if I'm going to give this opportunity and then Vince McMahon does something with good creative for Jinder Mahal. But no, he came out, did racist jokes against Nakamura. He had a terrible, terrible, terrible feud with Randy Orton, who Randy Orton was absolutely motivated to give Jinder Mahal great matches or a great feud. Because Randy Orton believes in Jinder Mahal. They're friends. But after a while, Jinder Mahal is just not working anymore. SmackDown Live suffered. The ratings suffered. It didn't help that at the same time, the tag team division on SmackDown Live was dog shit. Even with the Usos and the New Day, it was dog. The Usos and the New Day were the only reason to watch SmackDown Live at that time. Which is weird when your top champion is supposed to be the reason why you watch a brand, more than likely. More than not. And then Vince McMahon was like, Brock Lesnar was like, do not give me Jinder Mahal. I want AJ Styles. And putting the title on AJ Styles brought SmackDown Live back to life. But for every Jinder Mahal, there's a Daniel Bryan. Somebody who we all know as wrestling fans should be champion, is championship caliber, championship material, but he's being pushed back because he's not the stereotypical champion type that Vince McMahon is after. And it took for the entire wrestling fan base, the entire WWE universe fan base. It took for the entire collective of fans to revolt against Vince McMahon, the authority, the WWE. It took for them to do all that for him to put the title on Daniel Bryan. Fast forward to Becky Lynch. I have always said, you can go back to the older podcasts on this channel, back when this channel was under 300 different names. I said it on many occasions. In my opinion, there are two women in the entire WWE that are the best in-ring superstars. That is Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. And many times I couldn't make up my mind who was who. There was never a number two. There was always 1A, 1B. I can never make up my mind because it changed every so often. They're the best of the best. And while Sasha Banks would win the championship on Sunday, lose it on Monday, or she win it on Monday, lose it the next Monday, Becky Lynch was over on SmackDown not doing a damn thing. She was suffering because Vince McMahon had ideas for what he wanted to do with other women. Lo and behold, doing those things with the other women did nothing for the division. SmackDown Live women's division was in a rut because nobody wanted to see Naomi wrestle Lana 3 times for the championship. And Carmella was doomed from the start when they had James Ellsworth run up that ladder, unhook the Money in the Bank briefcase, and give it to Carmella. The fans shit on that outcome so much. They shit on that historic match. That was the first women's Money in the Bank match ever. The fans shit on that so much, the WWE decided to do it the next week. They decided to redo the match. Except this time, Carmella won by herself. And all this time, Becky Lynch was in the back. The first ever SmackDown Women's Champion, just a year after winning the title for the first time. She couldn't get on the show. She was nobody on the show. Until fans had enough. I've been championing her name for years. And I couldn't do a damn thing by myself until millions and millions of other fans decided to join my ass and let it be known that we want Becky. And Becky was the result of a perfect storm. Nobody wanted Carmella as champ. Nobody wanted Charlotte as champ. Absolutely not Charlotte. And lo and behold, it was supposed to be Carmella versus Becky. And then Charlotte got into the match for doing nothing. Becky won a match to get into that, to be number one contender. Charlotte didn't do a damn thing. Charlotte just showed up. And Charlotte showed up after, like, she was on vacation or something. She had just got her breast surgery or something like that. She didn't do nothing except show up on SmackDown. And she got put into the match. And what should have been a one-on-one match that fans were so happy for Becky to finally get her opportunity turned into Charlotte getting the same match by doing nothing. And remember when I said Vince loves the big giants, the big bodybuilder types for men? And for the women, he loves a good blonde that is very, very attractive. What hair color does Charlotte have? Oh yeah, she's blonde. Is Charlotte an attractive woman? Yeah. Yeah, she is. Who was like a 1,500-time women's champion? Charlotte is. Right. Who kept winning? Who kept beating Sasha Banks 1 week into her reigns every single time she won a championship? Charlotte did. Oh yeah. So Charlotte gets a championship match for no reason, and that upsets fans even more. So the moment in which Becky turned and slapped the shit out of Charlotte and beat her up, that was the fans feeling the exact same way. We wanted to do the same to Charlotte. Even more, we wanted to do the same to Vince McMahon. Perfect timing, perfect storm. The fans created the man. Because without the fans, there is no backing of the man. There is no forcing of the hands of the McMahons. There is no first ever women's WrestleMania main event if there weren't for the fans. Period. But Becky Lynch is another example of great talent plus fans revolting. Perfect storm. And last but not least, Kofi Kingston. I've been a fan of Kofi Kingston from day one. I remember when he had that Jamaican accent in ECW. I remember him beating up guys on Paradise. I remember that. I remember him feuding with Randy Orton. I remember him beating up Randy Orton's car, his brand new car that was a gift to him backstage. I remember him doing that. I also remember him taking the RKO and Randy Orton getting pissed at him, calling him stupid, and that was the closest Kofi Kingston ever got to that WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston was supposed to beat Randy Orton for the WWE Championship years ago. Years ago. That was back when Kofi Kingston had more muscle mass than he does now. And Kofi Kingston is the perfect storm, but in a different way. Because Kofi Kingston had the opportunity given to him due to an injury to Mustafa Ali. But the problem is, it shouldn't have taken an injury to Mustafa Ali to give Kofi Kingston the opportunity that he's deserved for more than a decade. There's been numerous champions come and go who couldn't hold a torch to Kofi Kingston in that ring. But they got the opportunities that he didn't. There's been plenty of guys that don't have a handful of memorable moments in the ring. But Kofi Kingston has an entire yearbook worth of memories. Kofi Kingston was given the opportunity due to Mustafa Ali's injury, and all it took was one night. The same thing happened with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins wasn't supposed to be in that Elimination Chamber number one contender match back in 2018, back in January 2018. He wasn't supposed to, was it February? Whatever. He wasn't supposed to be in that match, but Jason Jordan got hurt. And you can't have Seth Rollins without a match at WrestleMania. So he was put into that Elimination Chamber match. But they had a gauntlet. He lasted an hour and 5 minutes. That's one of the easiest ways to get fans on the side of a superstar. Have him last an insane amount of time wrestling. Basketball players take a break after 24 minutes. They got halftime after 24 minutes. Seth Rollins wrestled for an hour and 5 minutes straight. Football players, they get what, 30? They get a 30-minute half, and then they take a halftime. He wrestled for an hour and 5 minutes straight. Kofi Kingston wrestled for what? What was it? 40? They said, was it like 50 minutes straight? A guy that we wanted to succeed. He was going to be in that chamber match, but we want him to be the last guy in. We want him to have the opportunity to get the title that he's been screwed out of for so long. And literally, overnight, Kofi Kingston was the biggest guy and the biggest name in the entire WWE. Becky Lynch is no longer the man because that's Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston is the biggest name, the biggest star in the WWE at the moment. Kofi Mania was trending overnight like that. Fans are rooting for him from the start of every show to the end of every show, from the start of a pay-per-view to the end of a pay-per-view. This is something that has been, this is more than Daniel Bryan. This is bigger and better than Daniel Bryan. This is bigger and better than Becky Lynch. This is a decade worth of pent up aggression, maybe. Pent up disappointment, pent up aggravation towards Vince McMahon, towards WWE, towards the creative. It's taken 10 years for Kofi Kingston to get this moment, and we're not going to let this go away. And just like Daniel Bryan, we're forcing Vince McMahon's hand. We're forcing him to do something that he was never going to do. We're forcing Vince McMahon to do something that he hasn't done since the Attitude Era, and that is go with the flow. Attitude Era, his livelihood was on the line, so let me go with the flow. My superstars are getting over on their own, so let's ride the wave, and it worked out. Daniel Bryan, he's getting here on his own. All of the fans are backing him. Let's ride the wave. Let's put the title on him at WrestleMania. Becky Lynch, the fans are begging her. Let's ride the wave. She's going to main event WrestleMania. She's going to win the Royal Rumble. She's going to main event WrestleMania. We weren't going to put the title on Daniel Bryan, but we were forced to. We weren't going to put the title on Becky Lynch. She wasn't even going to main event WrestleMania. Now, do you remember when Ronda Rousey first came? Every single rumor was Asuka, Charlotte, Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania 35. That was the rumor. Becky Lynch was never even in that rumor. But it was because of us and Becky Lynch that it is now Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte main eventing WrestleMania, while Asuka is over on SmackDown doing a damn thing. She not doing shit. And it is because of us that Asuka isn't doing a damn thing, because we made the man such a big deal that why would you care about anything else, Vince McMahon? Why would you not? You have two SmackDown superstars showing up on Raw, the two biggest names of SmackDown basically, showing up on Raw promoting that championship match, showing up on SmackDown promoting the Raw championship match, while the SmackDown superstar is facing Mandy Rose. And Mandy Rose isn't even the best person in her little duo. But I digress. So now, bigger than Daniel Bryan, bigger than Becky Lynch, Kofi Kingston is 10 years in the making of getting his moment. And we will be damned if he don't get his moment. And I gotta say this because I don't give a damn. Don't talk, just listen. It's more than just a phrase. Like I said, it's a movement. It's a way of life. This past Tuesday on SmackDown Live, the New Day came out to confront Vince McMahon, and I will be remiss if I don't say this. I think I used that word right, but whatever. The New Day happened to be 3 black men. Vince McMahon happens to be an old white man with a bunch of money and a whole bunch of power, and he's throwing that power willy-nilly to the detriment of those 3 black men, and one black man in particular who's been waiting for this moment for 10 years. Think about that. That's something that I don't think anybody has noticed. And my mind went there on Saturday. I can't want to say Saturday. My mind went there on Tuesday on SmackDown Live. 3 black men who are upset with the way they are being treated. And in particular, 2 of them are upset with the way that a living legend is being treated. They came out, they took over the show basically. They jumped all the tag teams that were in that 8-man tag team match to let them know, to let Vince McMahon know, we are here, we are sick and tired, nothing is getting past us tonight. And then the main event segment of the night, they come out to confront Vince McMahon, to tell him off to a degree. And I don't care if you didn't notice it. I don't care if you think that me bringing that up is racist in some type of way. It's the undertone is there. It's there. So many times in the history of black people, we've always been oppressed by somebody that was white with a bunch of power and a lot of money. Same thing is happening in this situation, essentially. This is bigger than wrestling in some aspects. I always try to think about black wrestlers when I was growing up that influenced me or I love to watch. I was big fans of Mark Henry. I love him to death. Booker T, I love him to death. Farouk, first black world champion in history of the business. And you got to think there's some black kids out there watching the New Day. The New Day were already their favorites. But now they see the way that they're being treated, and they might not know what racism is or what racial undertones are. But to see their favorite superstars, their 3 favorite superstars who happen to look just like them, to see them being treated the way that they are, and to understand that they want them to overcome the obstacles. And the moment that they see that happen will be the greatest moment in their lives, and it will empower them, and it will motivate them even more to be a part of this industry when they grow up, to be just like Kofi Kingston. So you might not like that I brought that up, but I'm going to bring it up. As a black man, when I see something like that, it makes something like this even more important. We've wanted to see Kofi Kingston be champion years ago. He was supposed to be champ years ago. And now is his moment, and we will be damned if this doesn't happen. This Kofi Kingston thing is bigger than Daniel Bryan, it's bigger than Becky Lynch, but just like Becky and Daniel Bryan, this is something that Vince McMahon has no control over. This isn't something that he started. This isn't something that there was a brainchild of his. This was something that the fans started. This was supposed to be Daniel Bryan versus Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. It was supposed to be Daniel Bryan versus Mustafa Ali at Fastlane. Mustafa Ali, I heard Kofi Kingston stepped in, and it was the perfect storm. So instead of Kevin Owens versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, we got that at Fastlane, and Ali was put into that match to get the Mustafa Ali idea of him versus Daniel Bryan for the championship out the way. The Attitude Era was a gift and a curse. Because the same thing that was the detriment of Vince McMahon and the WWE is the same thing that will bring the WWE to a healthier place. Make the WWE even better. And the idea that there's no John Cena is totally false. Because John Cena was created by Vince McMahon giving one superstar the opportunity that he hasn't given another superstar the opportunity to do. There's plenty of superstars on the main roster right now that have the ability to be absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely household names. Whether it be to mega superstardom crossover potential like John Cena, that is something that might not ever happen again. And if you want to talk about John Cena, there will never be another John Cena like that, another mega superstar crossover household name. I will give it to you. We might not ever see that again, because no matter how much this man tries to do something like that with Charlotte, Sasha Banks sells more merch than Charlotte. Sasha Banks happens to be the biggest crossover star in the entire WWE in terms of women's division, maybe the entire WWE, besides someone like Ronda Rousey. I don't even think Becky Lynch is crossover like Sasha Banks, because I have yet to see Becky Lynch in a cricket commercial like Sasha Banks. So the idea that there will never be another John Cena is dependent on how you view things. Because I view things as John Cena was given an opportunity of a lifetime to go out and make it on his own. And he succeeded. I have yet to see Apollo Crews given the opportunity. Apollo Crews, somebody that has absolutely tremendous in-ring ability and even more potential. And just this past Monday night on Raw, I wanted to see him turn on Kurt Angle in Kurt Angle's hometown, because I wanted to see them do something new with Apollo Crews. Just a few weeks ago, we thought we were going to get Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley because they gave Apollo Crews the opportunity to showcase some of his personality against Bobby Lashley. Somebody that people don't like. Bobby Lashley has X-Pac heat to an extent. And that crowd was popping for Apollo Crews. Tyler Breeze can wrestle his ass off. If you've ever seen Breaking Ground on the network, you will see how much you want to root for Tyler Crews. You have guys like Andrade who will put on fantastic matches. He should have been US champ or WWE champ a long time ago. Shinsuke Nakamura, they absolutely bullshitted their way to make him a non-factor. Rusev was the biggest star in the company. Rusev Day was being chanted over and over again. People wanted Rusev Day to win the Royal Rumble. So much that they were cheering for Lana to win the Royal Rumble. They didn't do a damn thing with him, and now every other week it's Rusev and Lana are unhappy. They want to leave the company, and then they go on Twitter saying that's totally untrue. You have all of these tremendous talents in that locker room that can prove that they're tremendous. They can prove me right and everybody else that are fans of them. They can prove us right. If you do what you did with John Cena, if you do what you did with Roman Reigns, and you give them the opportunity. Kofi Kingston wasn't given this opportunity by will of Vince McMahon. This wasn't Vince McMahon's idea. Daniel Bryan wasn't champion because of Vince McMahon. Becky Lynch isn't the man because of Vince McMahon. You have to give these superstars the opportunity. Mojo Rawley. I'm a fan of Mojo Rawley. He could talk his ass off. People shit on Mojo Rawley in the ring, but I'll have you know, when he was moved over to Raw as part of the Superstar Shakeup last year, he had a match with Seth Rollins. That match was pretty damn good. Mojo Rawley, in my opinion, will never be the guy to lead the match. He will never be the guy to be the foundation of a match. But he can absolutely work up to his competition because that match proved so. That match was great. You got to give these guys the opportunity. Otherwise, you won't know what you're working with. So when these guys end up leaving your company and they go make it on the indies, you're going to feel stupid as shit. Because you had these guys right under your nose and you didn't do a damn thing with them. But when they went out and they bet on themselves and they prove you wrong, just like Pac, you're going to wish you had them back. You're going to wish they were there for you, making you money, making you richer, making your product better. So ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, in my opinion, the Attitude Era was both a gift and a curse. Because the same thing that was the downfall of WCW, the same thing that was the downfall of early WWF was the same thing that is going on at the moment. The same thing that brought Monday Night Raw back to prominence. The same thing that we wish we could see all that. If you liked everything that you heard, if you didn't, comment down below what you like, what you didn't like. Please like, this video. If you dislike it, that's fine. That's fine. If you dislike this video, just let me know down low in the comments what you didn't like. I'm sure I will comment back out of respect, because I'm not one of these guys in the community that I claim to know everything. I don't try to sound like Vince Russo so I can get fans. You know who I'm talking about. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the old podcast stuff. I still don't know if I want to go back to doing reviews of Raw and SmackDown. But one thing for sure, check out all of the WWE Universe Mode gameplay that I have. I have some really cool ideas, really cool concepts for storytelling, for feuds, for angles. Check those out. Like, comment on those vids. Make sure you subscribe. Head on over to teespring.com/DTJL-4-life. That's teespring.com/, I forgot to say stores. I messed that whole website up, so I'm going to just put the link down in the description. Go check out the merch. Go buy some. Go support me. And with that, DTJL for life.